It's been a year since 20 Indian troops and at least 4 Chinese soldiers died in a deadly border clash in India's north. But the standoff in the Karakoram mountains that led to the clash continues. That skirmish in the Galwan Valley occurred on the more than 3,000-kilometer-long, mostly undemarcated border between the two Asian giants. Both claimed transgressions into each other's territory at various points. A massive troop build-up from both sides followed. Earlier this year, troops did pull back from one of those points, and that point was further south in Pangong Lake. That was in February. But since then, talks to have troops pull back from other areas such as in Gogra, Hot Springs and the Depsang Plains have not changed the situation on the ground. Here's more.
High in the Karakoram ranges, jagged cliffs soar above the Galwan Valley. These satellite images show the disputed region where Indian and Chinese troops clashed a year ago. Soldiers confronted each other, then attacked with rocks and clubs in what was their first fatal confrontation since 1975. The clash killed 20 Indian soldiers, while the Chinese government claimed only 4 of theirs were killed. But it was the most serious face-off between the two nuclear-armed neighbours in nearly half a century, and both sides blamed each other. The entire country is hurt and angry at the steps taken by China at the line of actual control, the border. The clashes triggered an ongoing wave of anti-China sentiment in India and a ban on an array of Chinese apps, including TikTok and WeChat. But China said it was merely defending its territorial integrity. Shockingly, on June 15th, Indian troops seriously violated the bilateral consensus and crossed the border line twice, engaging in illegal activities and provoking and attacking Chinese personnel, resulting in serious physical confrontation between border forces on the two sides. China and India have a history of face-offs along this yellow line, known as the line of actual control. It's not a hard border since China and India have never actually agreed on where it should lie. But the ongoing competition between them to build infrastructure along it continues to heighten tensions. The two militaries agreed in February to pull back from the mountains around the contested Pangong Lake. But China has so far refused to withdraw from the other areas it has occupied. And India's Ministry of External Affairs says the process of disengagement remains unfinished.
Joining me now for more is defense analyst and journalist Ajay Shukla. Ajay, what is the situation on the ground now?
Well, the situation remains pretty much the same. There has not been a great degree of disengagement and pullback by either the Chinese or the Indians. There is one sector, and that is, it's called the Pangong Lake sector, where a mutual disengagement and pullback has been agreed to. But there are still 3 more sectors from the north, counting down the Depsang Plain, the Galwan Valley, and also further south towards Demchok, where the Chinese have not pulled back. The Indians have also deployed forward now. And to that extent, there's you can call it a token disengagement, but the troops remain in contact. Troops are facing up. The dangers of inadvertent escalation still continue. And to that extent, it's not a very happy situation on the line of control, the line of actual control, I should say, in Ladakh.
Ajay, does that mean that any hopes that Chinese forces will vacate the areas that India wants them to vacate are misplaced?
Yes, by the looks of it. They've been in occupation of these areas for more than a year now. They have not been willing to discuss disengagement from these areas in the senior military officers' border talks that take place periodically. So by the looks of it, the Chinese seem to be saying that where we have disengaged from where we want to disengage, but the rest of the areas where we are in occupation, are Chinese territory. So it's very much a sort of a process of getting by steadily creeping forward and remaining in occupation of those territories. Eventually, they just become Chinese territories after a few years.
I'm wondering then, just trying to expand this to the region, what is the takeaway from this India-China standoff that has lasted more than a year now for countries in Asia that also have territorial disputes with China?
Well, it's a very clear lesson, isn't it? Just as they have done in the South China Sea, they have drawn a sort of an arbitrary unilateral 9-dash line and 11-dash line, and they steadily come into possession of islands and atolls by building military infrastructure in the areas that they claim. They're doing much the same thing in Ladakh. They've come forward, they've taken occupation of the areas that they claim, and they're pretty much sending out the signal that we're not withdrawing from here. This is Chinese territory. So there is a clear parallel between the South China Sea, except that that's in a maritime context, and here on the land border in Ladakh.
Honestly speaking, Ajay, countries in the region don't appear to really have an answer to this, to these kinds of Chinese actions, do they?
No, the only sort of difference that you have here in this case is that the Indian army, albeit belatedly, sort of went up, occupied, faced off against the Chinese, and sort of let the signal be known that they will not allow any further sort of creeping possession by China of Indian claimed territory. So while in the South China Sea, China is pretty much getting a free run, in the land border, the Indian side has sort of put its foot down and said that we are not letting you get in possession of any more Indian territory. So it's a sort of a nasty situation. But Chinese sort of military planning sort of seems to be okay with that kind of nastiness. As long as they get what they want, they get by occupying those territories, they're quite okay with it.
Ajay Shukla, we'll leave it there for the time being, but thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.